You don't manifest when you decide what you want. You manifest the moment something inside you shifts, before you even know it happened. Long before a desire becomes clear enough for words, before your mind forms a single thought, your body sends out a signal the universe instantly understands. It's tiny, quiet, almost invisible, a micro-emotion, a flicker of inner coherence, a soft release of tension, one unconscious exhale. And the quantum field picks up that frequency immediately, not as a request, not as a command, but as a vibration. And vibrations move first. They begin rearranging the field before your thoughts ever catch up. This is the part most people never realize. Manifestation doesn't begin when you ask. It begins in the silent space before the asking even forms. The mind loves to pretend it's the architect of desire, the planner, the creator, the one in charge. But the mind is always late to the process. Desire isn't born in the mind. The mind simply recognizes what your energy already chose. Your body senses a new timeline long before you consciously identify what that timeline looks like. And the field responds to that shift the very moment it happens. In quantum terms, it's a pre-collapse signal, the smallest wobble in your energetic state, steering potential realities toward you before you even realize you're choosing them. You felt this before, even if you never had the words for it. Think of times when a new chapter entered your life and only later did you realize you had been subtly preparing for it. You changed. Your routine adjusted your environment, shifted your mood, softened your defenses. Not because you knew what was coming, but because your energy aligned. Before your mind understood the alignment, the universe didn't wait for you to articulate the desire. It responded to the silent frequency that came first. Neuroscience confirms this. In surprising ways, your brain predicts your actions milliseconds before you consciously decide them. Your nervous system detects emotional shifts seconds before you're aware of feeling them. Your body changes state minutes before you form a conscious thought about what you want. This means that your vibration, the chemistry, posture, breath, rhythm, and electrical patterns running through you is already shaping your reality while your mind is still trying to name the desire. You're manifesting without knowing you're manifesting. This is why intentions often feel slow while life changes feel sudden. The intention comes after the pivot. The mind observes the desire only after the body has already begun aligning with it. The field responds to that alignment, not the words you later attached to it. This is why some manifestations feel effortless. Not because you prayed or visualized with perfect precision, but because the vibrational shift happened quietly, cleanly, without resistance before the mind had a chance to complicate it. The spiritual traditions call this the whisper before the prayer. The moment when your energy opens, your chest softens, your awareness expands just enough for the field to recognize a new version of you emerging. You're not asking yet. You're not visualizing anything. You're simply becoming someone slightly different than you were a moment ago. And that difference sends a ripple through the field strong enough to start drawing new timelines toward you. This is also why people sometimes manifest things they weren't consciously aiming for. Reality doesn't wait for clarity. It responds to coherence. Coherence doesn't need words. It needs presence. A brief moment of genuine alignment carries more manifestational power than weeks of affirmation spoken from tension. When your frequency synchronizes with a possibility, even for a second, it activates a pathway in the field that begins moving toward you, long before you attempt to reach for it. Imagine your inner world like a tuning fork that vibrates constantly, picking up on possibilities that resonate with your current state. The moment your vibration shifts, even microscopically, new possibilities begin vibrating back. Your mind tries to make sense of it after the fact, but the energetic selection has already been made. You don't choose with thought. You choose with vibration. And vibration always moves before language. This explains why the universe responds so quickly when you're in a state of openness. When you're nervous, system relaxes even slightly, the field receives a cleaner signal. It senses the absence of resistance and begins aligning paths you haven't consciously asked for yet. Opportunities start forming. People begin appearing. Synchronicities cluster around you. Not because you requested anything, but because you became available. Availability is the most powerful form of asking. In the quantum field, readiness precedes desire. A timeline becomes accessible the moment your frequency can hold it, not the moment you identify it. Your request isn't spoken, it's embodied. The universe listens to your chemistry, your breath, your coherence, your emotional tone. These are the real words you speak. And when those words shift, the field adjusts immediately, rearranging itself around the version of you that is silently coming alive. You are being answered before you even know what you're asking for. The future feels your vibration before you can name your direction. And the moment you understand, this manifestation stops being about control and becomes about resonance. It stops being about articulation and becomes about allowing the energetic shift that precedes the thought. This is where your real power begins. In the space before the desire forms, before a desire becomes conscious, your body is already speaking on your behalf. Not through language, but through micro signals, shifts in breathing, tiny changes in heart rhythm, subtle releases in the diaphragm, flickers in the electromagnetic field around your chest. These changes happen so fast and so quietly that the mind doesn't notice them, but the universe does. The quantum field is exquisitely sensitive to these microwaves. It picks up the frequency before the story, the emotion before the thought, the readiness before the request. And because of that, it begins rearranging your environment based on who you're becoming, not what you're asking for. This is why life sometimes surprises you with things you didn't even realize you wanted. Your frequency revealed at first. The body whispered something the mind hadn't yet translated. The field responded to the whisper. Most desires don't start as goals. They start as energetic shifts, a loosening in the chest, a release of an old internal contraction, a sudden sense of possibility without context. These internal micro-movements are not random. They are the first signals of alignment. When an old emotional weight dissolves, even slightly, the field interprets that as space, and space attracts new timelines the same way a vacuum pulls air. Before your mind can say, I want this, the field is already delivering the early signs of it. This is why certain opportunities appear out of nowhere. They didn't come out of nowhere. They came from the moment your frequency stopped being crowded by old emotional noise. Your unspoken frequency is far more honest than your spoken intentions. You can say you want abundance, but if your nervous system tightens every time you think about money, the field feels the tension first. You can say you want love, but if your body still flinches at vulnerability, the field registers the flinch. You can say you're ready for change, but if your breath is shallow and your posture is defensive, the universe reads that posture as your real request. The most powerful part of this truth, your frequency updates the moment. Your body feels safe enough to expand. Even a small moment of grounding, a deeper inhale, a softened jaw, a release in the shoulders can shift your vibration enough for the field to adjust its response. In those moments, you're no longer broadcasting from the past. You're broadcasting from a version of yourself that's more open, more receptive, more aligned with what's waiting to meet you. This explains why presence is one of the strongest manifestational states. When you are present, your energy becomes uncluttered. The past loses its grip. The mind stops projecting old fears. The body stops reenacting old patterns. In presence, your frequency becomes clear, enough for the field to mirror a new reality. Presence isn't stillness. It's availability. And availability is the essence of asking without asking. There's something profoundly beautiful about this. It means the universe is always listening to the version of you beneath your thoughts, the version you reveal when you stop trying to manage your life through mental force, the version that shows up when you breathe deeply, when you release tension, when you allow yourself to feel something clean. In those moments, you're broadcasting your truest signal, the one the field responds to instantly. This is why healing and manifestation are inseparable. As soon as the body releases an old emotional pattern, the signal updates and the updated signal, pulls in outcomes that match your expanded state. You don't have to know what to ask for. You don't have to figure out your desires with perfect clarity. You only have to create an internal environment where your frequency isn't dominated by outdated emotions. Once that space opens, the field begins aligning paths you haven't even imagined yet. Think about all the times you sensed a shift coming before. You could describe it. You didn't know what was changing. You simply felt different, a little lighter, a little clearer, a little more grounded. That subtle shift was the beginning of manifestation. The field answered immediately because you had already emitted a new vibrational signature without speaking a word. And this brings us to a powerful realization. Your request isn't verbal. Your request is energetic. The universe doesn't wait for articulation. It responds to resonance. If you feel this landing in your body, if something inside you is recognizing the truth of it, anchor that frequency right now in a way the field can register. Declare the shift without forcing it. Type in the comments, "My energy speaks before my thoughts." Not as a ritual, not as a mantra, but as a mark in your timeline. The moment your frequency begins to lead the conversation with the universe. Once this truth settles in, reality stops feeling like something you must command and begins feeling like something you participate in. A co-creation where your vibration moves first and life responds with precision. This is how manifestation truly begins. In the unspoken spaces, in the quiet transitions, in the subtle signals your mind hasn't learned to interpret yet. And when you understand this, the entire process becomes softer, easier, more natural. You stop trying to force outcomes. You learn to feel the shift. Instead of chasing it, you start trusting that the future is already rearranging itself around you long before you can name what you want. There's a moment in your inner world, subtle, quiet, almost invisible, where creation begins shaping itself around you long before you consciously participate. It's the space between states, the soft transition where your energy shifts but your mind hasn't caught up yet. This moment is what I call the precation window, and it's one of the most overlooked forces in quantum manifestation. If you've ever wondered why opportunities appear before you, consciously decide to pursue something, this is why the field begins aligning as soon as your vibration changes, not as soon as your thoughts do. The precation window appears in the instant your internal state moves into a new configuration. Maybe your breath deepens without reason. Maybe you feel a subtle lightness. Maybe a heaviness you've carried for years loosens its grip by a few degrees. These micro shifts may seem insignificant, but they are chemically and electrically measurable inside your body, and the field senses them instantly. In that moment, your vibration no longer matches the timeline you are on. And so, the universe begins reorganizing the path ahead, even if you haven't formed a single conscious desire. Neuroscience provides an elegant explanation. Your brain operates on predictive coding. It constantly forecasts what your next moment will feel like, based on previous emotional experiences. But when something in your internal state changes, your posture, your breathing, your heart rhythm, the brain's prediction model updates. That update is your signal, and the reticular activating system, the gatekeeper of your perception, immediately begins scanning for experiences that match the new internal configuration. Before your conscious mind knows what it's looking for, your biology is already preparing to recognize it. And this is exactly what the quantum field responds to. The state of openness created when the body updates its emotional prediction. This opens a window where your timeline can shift rapidly. You haven't asked for anything yet. You haven't visualized, affirmed, or articulated a desire, but the field has already received the message. Something in you is expanding. Something in you is releasing the emotional residue that once held your signal in place. Something in you is ready to perceive a new configuration of reality. This is why manifestations often feel like they start happening on their own. It's not spontaneity. It's physics. when your vibration stabilizes in a new emotional tone, even. For a few seconds, the field responds by drawing in events that resonate with that tone. And because the shift precedes your awareness of it, the manifestations arrive before your mind even knows how to name the desire. This is why your next chapter often begins as a feeling, not a plan. The precation window is delicate. It's not about intensity. It's about neutrality. When the body temporarily stops referencing the emotional past, your vibration becomes clean. You stop sending mixed signals. And in that moment, the field has clear access to your present frequency without interference. The universe doesn't need your clarity. It needs your openness. Openness is the portal through which new timelines enter. Here's the nuance that changes everything. The precation window is not activated by wanting. It's activated by softening. When your internal world relaxes, your frequency becomes spacious, enough to hold new possibilities. This internal spaciousness is the vacuum the universe responds to. It's the energetic equivalent of exhaling deeply. After years of holding your breath in that exhale, reality finds room to move. The spiritual traditions have always pointed to this. Mystics described it as the still point before intention. Monks felt it as the silent awareness that precedes thought. Indigenous teachings called it the moment the spirit steps forward before the mind. These weren't metaphors. They were descriptions of the precation window, the energetic shift. That begins the manifestation process. Before conscious choice arrives. When you learn to sense this window, life becomes more fluid. You begin noticing the tiny internal cues that signal a timeline shift, the slight increase in warmth in your chest, the unexpected calm, the sensation that something is rearranging inside you. These are not random feelings. They are indicators that your vibration has begun opening the door to a new resonance. And once the door cracks open, the universe doesn't wait. What many people overlook is that you don't need to hold this state for hours. Even a brief moment of coherence sends a strong signal. The key is to recognize the window and relax into it instead of trying to control it. If you try to force clarity, the window closes. If you try to overthink the feeling, the mind injects old patterns. But when you simply allow the spaciousness to exist, without asking it to do anything, the field takes over. It begins assembling opportunities, aligning paths, adjusting probabilities in the background of your life. This is why some of the biggest manifestations happen right after you stop trying. Not because giving up magically attracts results, but because surrender creates a precation window. The internal noise fades just enough for the field to sense the real signal beneath it. And the real signal is always stronger than the stories you tell yourself. If you practice paying attention to these subtle shifts, you'll start noticing that your life rearranges itself the moment your vibration changes, not the moment you articulate what you want. You'll see synchronicities cluster around you without any logical link to your thoughts. You'll feel guided before you even know what you're being guided toward. You'll step into timelines that feel like they were prepared in advance, because energetically they were. The universe doesn't wait for your mind. It answers your vibration the moment it moves. There is a very specific moment in your evolution when the universe begins responding to you with a level of precision that feels almost eerie. Not because you asked clearly, not because you repeated a technique perfectly, but because your energy settled into a version of yourself that no longer needs to beg for what is already aligned. You stop chasing clarity. You stop manipulating your thoughts. You stop trying to convince yourself that you deserve something you've been wanting for years. Instead, something softer happens. Your frequency becomes unmistakably coherent. And when coherence arrives, the universe answers without waiting for a request. Receiving begins long before asking, because the universe responds to identity, not intention. When you stabilize in a version of yourself that feels open, grounded, receptive, and emotionally uncluttered, the field mirrors that identity with mathematical elegance. Reality rearranges not because you demanded it, but because you finally became someone who can hold what you're calling in. The future doesn't arrive because you reached for it. It arrives because you became compatible with it. Think about that. Compatibility is the true language of manifestation. When you are internally aligned with a timeline, you don't need to articulate it. The field recognizes you instantly. The same way two tuning forks recognize each other in a quiet room. The moment your vibration matches the frequency of a possibility, the possibility begins moving toward you. Not metaphorically, literally. Your brain's perceptual filters shift. Your nervous system relaxes into new patterns. Your environment reconfigures around your state. This is why new opportunities begin clustering the moment your internal world stabilizes. You're not manifesting in the traditional sense. You're receiving what your vibration is already capable of holding. This is the point where your relationship with life transforms. You stop trying to force desires into existence because you no longer believe manifestation is built from effort. You begin to sense that life is participating with you, adjusting itself to your inner configuration. You feel your future leaning toward you instead of you chasing it. And this changes everything. Your pace, your choices, your emotional baseline, your sense of belonging in your own life. Receiving before asking is a sign that your old identity has finally loosened its grip. The emotional residues that once distorted your signal are fading. The reflexes that shaped your past timelines have softened. Your energy no longer vibrates with the tension of who you used to be. Without that tension, the field receives a signal that is clean, clear, and consistent. A signal strong enough to collapse a new reality without conscious instruction. This shift doesn't mean your life becomes passive. It means your actions begin emerging from alignment rather than anxiety. You're no longer taking steps out of fear of missing out or fear of being left behind. Your movement becomes intuitive, guided by a sense of inner congruence rather than external pressure. Choices appear that feel like they were designed for you. You don't have to analyze them. Your body recognizes them instantly. The mind finally becomes the observer of a process the field has already initiated. At this stage, and your environment begins to respond quickly, sometimes in ways that feel surreal. A conversation that was once difficult becomes effortless. A path you thought was closed opens smoothly. A connection appears with uncanny timing. Ideas arrive and your awareness fully formed. The external world becomes a reflection of the internal steadiness you've been cultivating. The universe doesn't hesitate. When your signal is stable, it expands around you. This is also when you begin understanding a deeper truth. You never had to ask out loud. The universe was never responding to your words. It was responding to your state. Asking is a mental behavior. Receiving is a vibrational one. And vibrational requests are always transmitted before conscious thought. This means your life is already shifting the moment your energy shifts, not a second later. If you feel a quiet recognition inside you, right now, a sense that life has already begun moving in response to who you're becoming, honor that. You're not imagining it. You're sensing the pre-manifestation tremor, the subtle alignment that happens when your field synchronizes with a timeline you didn't even know how to describe. This is the stage where creation becomes easy. Not because you've mastered techniques, but because you've mastered openness. And if you're ready to stabilize this state to understand how to maintain coherence, dissolve emotional static, align your identity with your future self timeline, and receive with clarity instead of strain, then the path is already prepared for you. Your future is already responding. This is your moment to receive.